YouTube, see Facebook and Facebook. All right, check, check, check. All right, y'all, we're about to get rolling here. So make sure where everything is good, that I can be seen, can be heard, all that stuff. Make sure we're live in all the places that we are supposed to be. Go ahead and click this. And all right, Facebook's loading in, always kind of late to the party, but it all is good. All right, going live. All right, y'all. So first off, welcome to another edition of the Automation Mastery Podcast. And of course, this series is the Road to 10K, where I'm talking to a ton of experts about how they got into business, how they've been executing, how they really got started on the road, and what they do now, how those things can serve you, help you on your road to get into that first big business milestone. Of course, I'm Justin Morgan, the most annoying guy y'all will ever hear. I know, it's okay. And again, I help coaches and speakers create automated systems that save time and generate more revenue. If you're still on that road to 10K, still trying to figure those things out, remember, it's that training link y'all can hit down there at the automatewithease.com, or as we always say, show up here every Tuesday and get the goods, ask questions. There's another chance for y'all to hang out with a couple of experts who know what they're talking about, who's been in this stuff for quite a bit. And so today's guest, right, haven't known her long, right, self-admittedly. So this is actually a good chance for me to learn just as much as it is for you all to learn. So as a course, Pamela, I'm always a good student, right? So I have like my notebook, and it's not the fancy notebook, it's like the marble notebook, right?
Well, I'm with you. I'm
So she's ready.
Lifetime learner.
Exactly. So today you're gonna get quite a bit, right? So we're gonna talk about finances, right? We're going to talk about self-esteem. We're going to talk about money, things that are going on with the stimuluses and all that jazz. So let's hop into this episode real quick. So, of course, y'all, again, appreciate everybody being here. I'm gonna have Pamela, I'm gonna have you introduce yourself here in a second. As y'all come in, remember, tell us who you are, tell us where you're from, and tell us what you do. Those things are important, right? Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do. Make sure you put those things in the comment, and of course, hit that share button. Now, I can't do justice to all that you do, right? I've checked out her website, and I know she empowers people with the power and knowledge of finances, the power of understanding yourself, having confidence. And there's a certain way that she just kind of merges those topics, but I'm going to let her explain it best. Right. So go ahead, Pamela, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell the folks who you are.
Okay, I am Pamela McCoy, aka Pamela with three A's, as people always point out. Um, I hail from Tampa, Florida currently. I have a background, my degree is in business management with a concentration in economics from North Carolina State University. Many, many moons ago. We won't tell my age, but just know it was a minute ago. I have almost 30 years in the credit industry. Started my first company back in 2008. That is the Bonafide Credit Consultants LLC. And the Bonafide is spelled different, Bona, the number 5E, though it is pronounced Bonafide. And I don't know if I have time to go into the whole story, but 5 is my number. So you'll see that consistent in a lot of things that I do as it relates to my businesses. Most recently, I launched another division of Bonafide. That newest division is B5 Reaffirm. And as Justin indicated, on the bona fide side of the business is where we do the financial capability education, personal money management. And I do some selective one on one consultations. And then on the B5 Reaffirm side of the business is where we focus on mental health, specifically self esteem of females. And they are so intertwined that you cannot talk about money without talking about your mindset, right? And so that's where they intersect. If you're not mentally in a good headspace, then you make bad financial decisions. And so, it's our goal at Bonafide and B5 Reaffirm, the synergy in terms of the mission is to provide tools to each and every person, group, or organization that we're blessed to serve, to provide them with tools that they can immediately use to become the best version of themselves. And all of that starts with shifting your mindset. When you think differently, you have different outcomes. When you feel differently about yourself, you show up different in the world, thus having different outcomes. And so I'm delighted to do what I do. I love doing what I do. If ever asked, and I have been, if I were to choose one word to describe why I do what I do, that one word would be impact. And what I mean by that is that whomever that I'm blessed to my path to cross, whether it's simply a smile, a brief conversation, or a long dialogue, that somehow that person or group, that their life is different in some way for the better because our paths have crossed. And so my goal is to always have impact personally, professionally, walking in my purpose. So in
Mm.
a nutshell, that's kind of me and why I do what I do.
Excellent, excellent. I love the one word approach. I
Mm-hmm.
use that with my clients. I use it for myself. Something that I picked up from this guy called Evan Carmichael, has this huge YouTube channel. He has like this focus on one word. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think being able to take everything you do kind of encompasses one statement
Mm-hmm.
and easily, pretty much easily have somebody understand what you're about, I think is amazing. One random question, and
Okay.
that only you would get. Are you more micro or macro econ? If you had to pick.
Probably. Oh God, that's tough. Like I'm like middle of the road because you really can't have one without the other, and it really is situational,
One
right?
is more interesting than the other for certain
Um,
people, though.
well, yeah, I guess that's probably a true statement. But for me, it's kind of situational, I guess. If
Okay.
I would be hard pressed to choose one side.
Okay.
And as
Okay.
I say in when I mentor, on the personal side, I'm also a mentor. I do a lot of outreach and community service stuff in addition
Hmm.
to my business side. And so I'm a mentor for USF, which is one of our universities here, their School of Business. I have been, I think I'm on like my 14th mentee at this
Okay.
point. Um, and I always, on the relational side, because finance is such a big part of what I do, I always tell them, it is about your relationship life is akin to a GL, right?
Hmm.
And on a GL, there's two columns: assets and liability. There is no gray. It is no
Right.
sort of kind of maybe.
Right.
It's either asset or liability. And so keeping that in mind uh, will kind of make you have to make a choice, right? And so macro, micro, I'm really trying to find that gray right down. Trying to find that little pat right down the middle so I can, not have to choose.
So now you're giving me the political answer, which is
Right, right,
how can I avoid committing to one of these things? Which
right.
is
Like, yeah, I don't
it's
know if
all
I could do it.
good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm an econ major myself, right?
Hmm.
So that's why it's like so somebody's economist because I talk about it sometimes. I've done a couple. I think I've done maybe 2 lives to date over the
Hmm.
6+ years I've like done stuff online, or I've actually talked from an economics
Right.
standpoint when we talk about business. So I think it's interesting to hear that from you and be able to bring this out because knowing what you do at the end of the day, it really does kind of marry the two, right? Because you talk
Hmm.
about self-confidence and you talk about and then also finances. But then we're going to talk about some macro stuff in terms of things that are going on with the government and things like that, which
Right.
is macro to everyone else,
Right.
not so much to us. But
Big
again,
picture
it's
versus
big picture
laser
versus little
focus.
picture.
Yeah, versus
Exactly.
laser focus. Yeah.
Exactly. Would you say so? When I think of finances, I think of confidence, right?
Hmm.
Is it what is it the chicken or the egg, right? Like, is it being and having more money makes me more confident, or being more confident helps me make more money?
And I think that that is too a perceptional kind of question, which came from it's the chicken or the egg. Like you got to have one to have the other, but you got to have the other to have one kind of thing. Um, because I think to some degree, money, finances can
Mm-hmm.
make you feel confident, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's contingent upon the circle where you're seeking to have confidence, right? Um, but to
Mm.
others, if I'm not confident, I can't accomplish what I need to accomplish to get the money, right? And so it really is perception and from the individual's perspective, which one came first. But it is truly you have to marry the two, right? But the reality is you have some people with a lot of money who are not self-confident, right? And you have people who don't have money who are not confident because it's not that money buys that, right? Because if that were true, then the people who have a lot of money would automatically be confident, and that's not a true statement, right?
True.
And so,
True.
again, I know I'm doing a lot of gray here after I just talked about my GL example, where there is no gray, and I'm just swimming in the gray pool right now. But it's hard. Like I can't really answer that question realistically and have one statement be true and one statement be false because they both are true in a specific scenario.
Right. Let's put it this way. So let's give it some context and some frame, because I think that'll make life easier. Because at the end of the day, there really isn't a right or wrong. It is
Hmm.
situational, and I'll respect that statement. But at the same time, I want to make sure that folks kind of get something that I know that you can give them. Um, let's say that I am that. So let's say I'm me. Eight. Let's say 8 years ago, right?
Hmm.
And I haven't started this business thing out. I'm still trying to find my way through stuff. Not making the money, right? I'm making a ton of money.
Hmm.
But my biggest challenge, and this is what I find with most folks, that I'm sure you find this when you're talking to people who are trying to find their way, is they just don't feel strongly enough about what they're capable of doing.
Hmm.
And with that being said, if you're that person, right, who is again trying to find their way, um, other folks have probably talked about how they have some skills. Maybe they're good at some things.
Hmm.
It's that, hey, you can really cook. You could start a bakery,
Right.
or hey, you're really good at singing, and you should maybe join a group, maybe run a group. It's hey, you're really talented at this thing, but the person themselves don't really believe it, right? So
Hmm.
for in that scenario, which
Yeah.
one comes first, chicken or the egg?
You're going to have the esteem, right? I would say focus on that. And even not solely in the context of money, because people define success differently, right? Money isn't everyone's definition of success.
Hmm.
And, you, you know, if you had to choose one or the other, I would say choose your self esteem because you should always choose you, right? Even if no
Right.
one else is choosing you, you should always choose you first, right? And when you choose you first and you're confident in self, then the world then becomes your oyster. Like you can do and be and accomplish anything if you set your mind to it, right? And even if it's not your strong suit today, if it's important enough to you, you'll go garner those skills needed for you to be successful in that thing. And so, for what I do, what I teach, what I find important and try to instill in people is that sense of self. your self-worth, your self-value, and confidence in you, because you cannot control other people, i.e., the world, what people say, what people do, all of those kind of things. And, when you talk about self-esteem and confidence, which can be used interchangeably to some degree, we all suffer from low self-esteem or decreased, diminished at some point in time in our life, some
Hmm.
season in our life. For some, it's longer than others, right? Um, but if it doesn't get addressed, because I say that self-esteem is not an age thing, it's a self thing. So you can be 7 and have those challenges, and be 77 and have the exact same challenges. They present themselves the exact same way in terms of feelings, right? Um, and so that's something that's fundamental, that impacts every aspect of your life, not just your profession or your financial side. Your self confidence, what you think and how you feel about yourself, impacts every aspect of your life,
Mhm. Yes.
right? Relationships, money, your job choices, your ability to be successful on a job, your ability to be successful in a relationship. All of that is tied to self. And if we can't get people to that strength in self-esteem, they'll be hindered in every aspect of their life until they
Mm.
address it. And I tell people, no matter how fast you run, no matter how far you go, whenever you turn around, you're going to be right there. So you might as well pump the brakes and figure out you, because you cannot outrun you. You cannot, dispel you. Everywhere you go, you're going to be right there. And so let's just find a way to fix that. Let's find a way to address whatever that deficiency is, because it is deficiency that can be addressed and fixed, right? Because
Right.
it's all about your mindset. And if we can shift your mindset, then all things then become possible, because you're looking at things through a different lens, if you will.
Mm.
So self-esteem is fundamental, and I can't even begin to tell you some of the testimonials when the B5 reaffirmed division. I refer to that as my assignment from the big guy, right?
Okay.
Um, and it got birthed out of a contract that I had working with some at-risk girls, is where the whole concept, the idea, the whole program kind of came out of that initiative. And like everything else I said, I was seeking impact. But when I tell you, it was beyond my wildest dreams with regards to the impact. And I didn't know or see, but of course he sees and knows everything. That's why he gave me this assignment. These boxes, this program has literally saved some lives.
Mm.
And that was something that I was not, I had no idea. Like, you don't plan to put that in your planning, save some lives. Like, that wasn't in the plan. The plan was to have impact, but it has been an amazing journey of impact, and to see the shift in mindset of self. It's even hard to put into words. To say amazing, that word just doesn't seem big enough or impactful enough to really describe some of the situations, um, that testimonials that have been birthed out of this journey. One of the young girls, the first girl that, I guess the most powerful testimony, and I share hers often because it was the first, that saved a life. And there's been a few others that have been brought to my attention since then, but I always share her story because it was the first, and it was really the impetus to, um, or confirmation that I needed to do this on a bigger scale, that it's
Mm.
bigger than just this one group that I was seeking to have impact on. Um, Long story short, I worked with these girls, and I wasn't even thinking like a product or anything. I was just thinking working with these girls. So some months later, as I kept up with the girls, I thought, well, let me just do a survey and get some feedback on what they thought about the boxes and the program. The positive, the feedback was all very positive. They just wished that the box was a little bit bigger. Thus, the box that I had designed is a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Um, but I just kind of, oh wow, this is great. So I filed that away. Really didn't think anything about it. So some months later, this particular nonprofit, like many others, they send out these donation request letters around the holidays. So the contract stuff that started in March was the beginning of that contract. And so it was over like May or what have you. So fast forward to early December, I get this donation request letter, which, they typically will highlight one of their clients, tell their backstory, what brought them to that agency, how the agency helped them, da 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 da, donate to help us continue our mission.
Right.
And so imagine my surprise when I get my letter, it was one of my girls. And so
Oh.
when I was working with the girls, I didn't know their backstories intentionally because I wanted them to know in their time with me, it's like a clean slate. All I'm going to know is what you choose to share. So I'm like, oh my, like, what are the chances, right? So like, I'm in shock that it's one of my girls. And I read it. And when I tell you, her story was heartbreaking. This girl was like 15 years old. She had been through so much in her life. And so as I wipe my tears to get myself together, my initial, let me go see what she said about the boxes, this particular girl, right?
Okay.
So I go back and get her feedback sheet, and I'll pull it up because I want to read it exactly so I don't get it wrong, because it
Mhm.
was so profound for me. So one of the questions that I asked on the survey was, what do you like best about your B5 box? And what she wrote is, I like that I can depend on my box to lift me. Couple keywords, depend, because these girls are at-risk girls. So having something that they can depend on is just something that they don't have as a
Right.
general rule, and that it could lift her. And I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful. And then another question that I asked, in general, share how your B5 box has helped you. And she wrote, it helps me when I'm having a bad day, exclamation point. And I thought, wow. But even then, it didn't register like this is your assignment. So fast forward, I was speaking with one of the counselors after having read all of this experience or what have you, only to find that those statements have a different meaning, because this young girl was at the point of doing the ultimate negative act,
Mm.
taking her life, but the box. So when she said she could depend on it, and that's where she went when she had a bad day, she's still here today to tell her story. And I thought, oh my, it just gave me chills, when I'm hearing, like, oh my gosh, like when I read it, like how it now has a whole new meaning for me. And the icing on the cake, if you will, this young girl's name is not Pam or Kim or Tammy. Her name is Serenity. And her life had been anything but peace until the
Mm.
box. In this box, in this program, she found hope. She found a reason to be here. She found her value, her worth, right? And then that's why B5. In a
Okay.
nutshell, that is why B5. And what is a B5? It's a bona fide boss with brains, beauty, and a believer in me. That's the mantra, that's the mission, to help these females, young and old, um, to really find themselves. For some, it's to teach them. For others, it is to gently remind them. The other adage that I say is antonym. All that I need, I already have. And they just have forgotten, or they don't know that yet. But when they get it, that sense of empowerment is like, a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Like, you're this new thing, right? This new beautiful thing, and you know that you're beautiful. You know that you know that you know. In spite of what the world or other people try to tell you or convince you of, you know who you are and what you are. And that is that you're uniquely designed, you're perfectly imperfect, you have purpose, you have value, you have something to contribute to this universe that only you can do, right? And so be you. And so that's kind of the why B5 side, and why the mental health piece, the self-esteem piece, is so fundamental in everything. These girls are struggling in school, they're making bad choices, old and young,
Okay.
because of how they think and what they feel about themselves. When you think you're worthless, you know, and you have nothing, so what are you striving for when you're nothing, right?
Nothing. I mean,
Exactly. And so your actions are contingent upon what you're thinking, because your thought process controls your actions, right? And when you feel like, I'm a nobody, that's when that negative suicide, those thoughts, because
Thoughts come in.
no one will miss me if I'm gone, because I'm nothing.
Right.
I'm a nobody. Another situation, most recently, I just finished up a site this last week. And the first session I had with these girls, I asked them about low self-esteem. Do you feel like what's the definition of low self-esteem? Do you feel like you suffer from low self-esteem? And one of these girls said, I think I suffer from low self-esteem sometimes, but other times I don't think it's low self-esteem because I accept it. And I didn't really know what she meant. So I asked her clarifying questions. And what she was saying is, all her life, and again, she's like 14, 15 years old, all her life, everyone, that means different kinds of people that have been in and out or she's interacted with, all my life, everyone has told me that I'm ugly. And so I just accept it. So I don't consider that low self-esteem. That was like a dagger in my heart. I'm just like, oh my gosh, she feels so lowly about herself. And of course, her behavior, all that negativity that she's been involved in, the consequences and repercussions of her actions, all stem from what you think about yourself. Right. And when I tell you, at the end of the program, our last session, this girl, because I told her on that day, you're going to be my pet project. And before I finish, it is my mission to have you thinking differently about yourself. And I meant that with all that is in me. And by my last session with them, I never forced the participants to engage or share, right? We do activities or what have you. But when I tell you, she was like my co-presenter on that last session. Everything I asked for a volunteer to read, she wanted to read. She wanted to participate. She wanted to engage. She wanted to encourage her other peers. This is an entirely different girl than day one. And one of the final activities is that they have to write down affirmations about themselves. And so as we're doing the activity, the room is quiet, everybody's writing. So then I asked, does anyone want to share? She's the first person to raise her hand. And when I tell you, she spit out those affirmations, she was just rattling them off. And the best part of that is, I told her, I'm so proud of you. And I said, remember our conversation on the first day? And she said, yeah. And she said, but Miss Pam, I want you to know that never, ever again in life will I allow anyone to make me feel any different than what I have put on this piece of paper. That was a drop the mic.
Powerful. Powerful.
So she's going to show up in the world different. So she by default is going to make different choices because she knows this is who I am, and what I am is what is on this piece of paper. And I'm not going to allow anyone else to tell me different. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
That's why I do what I do. That's impact at a whole nother level.
It is. It is. Truly, truly, truly. And as I'm sitting there thinking about it, right? And I was like, I get because first off, all that was super powerful. Like, I'm thinking of what you said earlier about how there's no gray area. And it's a marriage of both. And but I said, so really, I was trying to find the simplest way for me to identify what you do, right? Because I like making things simple. That's what I do. Right. So even though automation is like complicated for everybody, my whole deal is making it simple. So I try to find very simple things. And Ken Brooks says powerful. Thanks for hanging out with us, Ken. Mr. Morgan, appreciate you as well. Ken Brooks from L.A., California, owner of Hot Spot Promotions. We appreciate you, Ken. And of course, feel free to reach out, man. If you want to be on the show one day, we could chat, Ken hangs out, and I've seen him, and he always pops in on some of these episodes. So very, very, very good to see you. Hope everything is well. So yeah, I was thinking about like how to identify everything. And at the end of the day, I think you mentioned ownership, right? And the self-confidence piece is really ownership of self. And I thought, wait, but the money part, like there has to be, oh, it's the ownership of life, right? So because it's one thing. I don't know if you ever heard of the concept of as above, so below.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really that, right? And it really kind of sticks to the whole that macro and micro have to exist kind of at the same time. Otherwise,
Exactly.
things get out of balance and out of whack. You can't just, it's nice to be self-confident, but if you don't not necessarily have money as your form of wealth, but you
Mm-hmm.
have some form of wealth in
In your health.
life, right?
Right.
That could be
Mm-hmm.
health, happiness, friendship. There is some type of wealth, some type of currency exists
Mm-hmm.
in your life that allows you to own the life portion. So if you're not self-confident, that's if you're self-confident, but you yet have no wealth in life,
Mm-hmm.
this can be
You're
very
empty.
short-lived,
Right.
right?
You're
Like
empty. And rich is a relative term.
exactly,
It's fleeting. And so I ask that question when I'm doing the financial literacy stuff, the financial capability education. Would you rather be rich or would you rather be wealthy?
right.
And some get confused and, oh, I want to, no, there is a difference.
There is a difference.
People use
There is a
them,
difference.
simultaneously, but they really is a difference, right? And you got to choose the wealth and what you're calling ownership. I often refer to as self leadership, right?
Mm,
And so you are leading yourself. And so I even do another one of the workshops that I do is called CEO Me that I do with young girls. And it is the concept or the thought process of what does it take to be a successful CEO? Any company, any corporation, it really doesn't matter what it is. What does it take? What are some of the characteristics that it takes to be a successful CEO? And then you have them kind of sharing all of that. Well, that's exactly the same characteristics it takes to be the CEO of self, right? You got to
right.
make some tough decisions. Everybody's not going to like the decisions, but you think it through and you make the best decision at this moment for you, right? And that is self leadership. You are the CEO of self, right? And so you get to make those tough calls. And sometimes you're going to make the right one, sometimes you're not. And when you make the wrong one, what do? Just like if it was a company, you assess,
Right.
right? You
Right.
reevaluate, and then you make the needed changes, right? You're not going to get everything right. Just because you're the CEO doesn't mean that you make every decision is the right decision, the best decision for the company, you know. But every decision, if you're a good CEO, every decision that you make is going to be thought through,
Mm,
right? You don't make haphazard choices and decisions because that could be the end of your business, right?
true. True. True.
But everyone's not going to be the perfect one, the right one. But as a leader, what do? You don't cave in just because you made one mistake. How about you regroup? You keep it
Exactly.
moving. You learn. You take the knot, that lump on your head, put a band, put an ice pack on it, right? Put a little ice pack on it, and keep it moving, right? You can't cave in. You only really fail, as I say in my book. The only time you fail is when you fall and you don't get up,
Mm,
right? That's the only time. So we're gonna fall in life, in business, in choices. What we're Because no one's perfect. That's why I say you're perfectly imperfect or imperfectly perfect, however you
right.
want to say it. Um, and once we embrace that and take perfection off the table, you're free to operate in you, right? When I'm not, whatever I do, I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm going to be the best I can be,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. So with so I dropped plenty of nuggets, and then folks got plenty on the inner work
Hmm.
now. So y'all hopefully are ready to own yourself. But now let's talk about owning life. Let's
That's
talk about
it.
owning your realm, your domain. And that usually comes down to money. And this is just be real, you know.
Absolutely. You're right.
Life is different when you can pay a bill versus when you can't pay a bill, when you
Hmm.
can buy some extra Christmas gifts just because you want versus you kind of getting the one gift just barely just because you don't want the shame of not giving something.
Right.
So with everything that's going on right now, If you had to kind of give us in terms of like today's climate, right? Um, how what things can we do? Because it's hard. Like, what things can we do to kind of take ownership of our money, of our finances, of that part of our life?
I would say, one of the fundamental things, good times and bad, is what I refer to as a spending plan. Some people call it a budget, right? Having that, and now I don't mean have it and lay it off to the side or put it in the drawer. I
Hmm.
mean have it, live by it, right? And that's going to be your roadmap, what you have coming in versus what you have going out. Do you end up with a positive cash flow or negative cash flow? Where are you at with that? And because of this particular season that we're in, things are tighter. True enough, right? And so you don't have necessarily as much left over as you used to. You may not be able to do those extra things that you used to, right? But you always prioritize everything. And it's your needs, your wants, then your desires, right? But needs are the top priority. And sometimes in tight times, when you're meeting the needs, there is no leftover for wants and desires. But it doesn't mean it's forever. It's for this season, it's for this period of time. And that's one of those tough choices when you're the CEO of your family, right? You're making those tough calls. Maybe you can't vacation this summer, right? Do a staycation, find something else fun to do. There's a lot of free things you can do. Get creative,
Right.
necessity is the mother of invention, right? So do some fun things. Doesn't mean, when you think about, what are priorities, and for me, family is the number one priority, and that's when people, oh, well, this happened at home, so can we reschedule the meeting? I always say to my clients, potential clients, anyone, family first, always, unapologetically, right? Your faith in your family, without those, nothing else really matters anyway.
Hmm.
So if you have a family emergency, then you handle your family. Business will be what it's going to be, when it's going to be, or if it's going to be. It really doesn't matter, because I can assure you, on my business, my family will be first, right? Right after my faith. And so, having those priorities, when you have those fundamental priorities, they're not seasonal. So it's not contingent upon what's going on economically, macro, micro, or any other way, right? These are fundamental. This is the foundation, right? When you build a house, pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, what's the most important? The foundation. If the foundation isn't solid, whatever, if it's brick, if it's siding, if it's whatever, it's not going to last because the foundation wasn't firm. And so it's true with your finances. Get that foundation, that fundamental, sturdy and firm. It'll weather the storm,
Hmm.
right? And when the money gets tight, that just means you tighten up on the budget. But it's a family affair, so everybody needs to know that this is the situation. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be forever, right? But for right now, for the foreseeable future, this is what it is. And this is how we're going to maintain and live comfortably, you know. Um, Hurricanes and all of that, because I'm in Florida, in Tampa,
Yep.
so the pandemic, whatever it's doing right now, we're not out of it, we're not really in it like we were, but whatever this transitional period is, we are. But come June 1st, hurricane season is going to start, and it's going to last through November. Now, if we have a major hurricane come through here, it's not going to be like, oh, we're not going to have any hurricanes this year because you're on the whatever transitioning from the pandemic. So there will be no hurricane storms this year. you know,
Mother Nature has done enough the last couple of
right.
years. Nothing else
Exactly.
is required.
In the Midwest where there's tornadoes and all that, it's not going to be a
Yeah,
public service announcement. There will be no
they
tornadoes.
take breaks.
It just is. And so you have to be prepared for the what if. When we had the recession, when the housing market crashed some years ago, it affected everybody to a different degree, but it affected everybody. But the main differential in how much it impacts you is what was your starting foundation. If you were making solid financial decisions pre-recession, then you weathered the storm a whole lot better than someone who did not, right? Just like the pandemic, when people were losing jobs and all of what was your starting point? If you were pretty solid in the starting point, then you know what you need to do. The money gets tight, so we tighten down on that budget. Everybody knows this is just what we're going to do, less entertainment, little less of that, little more beans and franks instead of steak and potatoes, whatever's necessary to make the numbers work, right? And, speaking of that, you probably heard the announcement, today about the $250 child credit that those who have children, you're going to get this $250 per child starting in July, and it's scheduled right now to last a year. And it's important that it's right now because who knows, we thought we are going to get the one stimulus check and then we ended up getting two more, so you never know what might change, might come, but you got to operate on and make your decisions on what you know today. And so what I would say to people who have that extra income, that unexpected income, because pre this announcement, you didn't know it was coming. So you were budgeting and making financial decisions for your family yesterday, last week, as though that money didn't exist because it didn't. And so my advice would be, my recommendation would be, yeah, you might have some necessities. Not, we're still in that needs column. We haven't moved over to the wants and the desires. If you have some things that need to be paid that are delinquent, then you take care of those things. Once those needs are met, we still aren't going to shift to that wants and desire columns just yet because we don't know how long this is going to last. And so my recommendation would be that just like last week, you didn't know it existed. From this day forward, live as though that money does not exist. And what I mean by that is you put it in your future. You invest that, whatever your 401k, IRA, get with your financial advisor or something, but we're not spending the money is the point that I'm making. We're not going to spend that money on frivolous things because this financial drought that we're trying to come out of, we don't know where the end is. And so we want to be able to be prepared and stretch it as long as possible. Yeah, maybe you got a job today, but all of that stuff is iffy. No one is financially secure, whether you're working for someone or working for yourself. Justin, what do we say as an entrepreneur? No meat, you don't eat. So right. If you don't have any clients, you don't have any revenue, whatever your business is, right? The corporate job or whatever that you're working, you can go in tomorrow and they lay you off or say your services are no longer needed or whatever they want to call it, right size and wrong size and downsize or whatever. All of it means unemployed, right? And so, the unemployment, they were doing a little extra in most states where you're getting extra money. Some states are doing away with that because some people, quite frankly, were making more money on unemployment than they were making working, which is sad commentary on that macro side. Right. that's even possible that you can make more money and it's more desirable to be unemployed than to work, right? That sets an awkward kind of precedent. And so they're trying to remove that cushion, to try to drive people back to work. But the reality is it's going to be tough, but we don't know. And we're not in a position to make these decisions. And so I'm telling people to get involved in politics, but if that's your thing, that's where the decisions are made. So you need to stay tuned and in tune with, we all get so hyped and focused on the big elections and the president of the United States. But how about it's those local elections that you need to be most focused on because it's a feeder system, right?
Right.
What's happening local, that's really what's feeding, and so not saying you got to, run for office tomorrow, but you certainly need to be in tuned enough to know what's going on in your local area with people that are getting elected. These elected officials are impacting your life, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Every decision that they make impacts you somehow, right? And so, the money this extra money, consider that is that live your life as though it doesn't exist as much as possible, meaning putting that money away into something ideally that some kind of product so your money is making money for you. I like to refer to that as some midnight money.
Midnight money. Okay.
While you're sleeping, that money is making money, right? So let that child credit,
it's gonna
take care of the needs.
Throw it all in crypto. Something to do.
Well,
just gonna throw it all in crypto.
I don't really know enough about crypto to speak on that.
True.
So I personally don't have no crypto because I don't understand enough, and I don't have that comfort level just yet to jump in that deep end. But
yeah, this is by no means financial advice, y'all. When I said throw it in the crypto, I'm not literally gonna throw it all in the crypto. Just
cup coin.
just just maybe a couple. But so yeah, no, but exactly. Again, it's kind of bonus money. It was never there. Like
Right.
it just never there. But it's
Yep.
there now, but it was never there. But good, good stuff. Now, because there's only so much we can cover,
Yeah.
talk about here on the show. Because otherwise we'll be here
Right.
all night long,
All night
talking
long.
all night long,
And I could talk all night long.
which is great. But I know some folks want to go to bed at some point. Or if you watch this, most folks will probably listen to this maybe in the morning. This will be up on the podcast up on YouTube so people can see it. They can watch it. It's on the business page. There's plenty of different places. So wherever you're watching this, we appreciate you. Wherever you're listening to this, we appreciate you. If you want more, if folks want to find out more and how they can work with Pamela with 3 A's, where can they find you and what you do?
I have two websites. One is the Bonafide side, the BONA, the number 5D, CC.com. And that's for the financial capability education, personal money management side, or the B5reaffirm.com, which is the self esteem side of the business. And actually, my websites are being redesigned as we speak to
Mm,
kind of put them under one umbrella. So soon you'll be able to just go to PamalaMcCoy.com and find both sides of the business, but we're not there yet. So stay tuned for that. But I hope your listeners will reach out to partake in my services of impact to shift their mindset and to get the tools that they need to become the best version of themselves is the end
excellent.
game goal.
Excellent. All right, y'all. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Yes.
Make sure you check out her stuff. Make sure you share this show, share it with a friend, share it with a family member, and yes, share it with those annoying neighbors, the ones that make the noises late at night. You know that one. Share it with those folks too, because they also need this information. We appreciate you and all that you do. And as usual, treat each day as a building block to a better future.
I love it. I
Peace.
love it.